Welcome to our Mathematics 9 Valenzuela Live. In this session, I want you to remember my name, Sir Jude, and join me as we joyfully venture the world of numbers as we discuss the first topic in grade 9 mathematics. Understand the mathematical concepts that will be presented for today with an open heart and an open mind. Determine solutions to mathematical problems that will need our decision-making and problem-solving skills. And of course, enjoy the good vibes of learning mathematics at home amidst pandemic. The topic that we will discuss for today is about quadratic equations and its solution. This is considered as the first topic in grade 9 mathematics that is based on the most essential learning competencies that was given by the Department of Education. So what do we expect from you as we finish discussing the topic for today? Here are our objectives. At the end of the discussion, you should be able to define quadratic equation. The second one, classify quadratic equation from not. You should be able to write quadratic equation in standard form, solve quadratic equations using extracting square roots and factoring. And of course, the last one, show accuracy and speed in solving quadratic equations. Just a reminder, we will utilize the react buttons found in the comment tab and the comment box. If you know the answer to a question or you have queries, feel free to drop them in the comment section. There are teacher moderators that will see and filter your comments. Before we start the discussion, make sure that your pen and paper are with you for taking down notes purposes. Let me take you to a place that is known for its disciplined citizens. This place is known as the Gateway of the North and the Vibrant City. Where is this place? Correct! The place that we are referring to is Valenzuela City. Have you been to all places in Valenzuela? How many barangays, landmarks, and parks have you visited? Let us test your familiarity to our very own Valenzuela City. Take a look at the following pictures. Do you know where they are? We will take a glimpse of the following places one by one. Where can you find this place? It is built beside the Valenzuela City Government Center and the Valenzuela Town Center. It is notable because of the arc-shaped ceiling. This is also built to house significant gatherings in Valenzuela. Are you familiar with the place? Correct! This is the Valenzuela City Amphitheater that can be found in Valenzuela People's Park. How about the second picture? Where can you find this? This structure is said to be over 400 years old and is a cultural and religious relic of the past Spanish era. The tower, along with the entrance arch, is the only remaining structure of the original church built in 1632. Where is this place? Very good. This is the San Diego de Alcala Bell Tower that can be found in Polo, Valenzuela City. How about this one? Are you familiar with this place? This is a modern design structure. The Mediterranean-inspired hall is one of Mayor Wynn's pet projects and features pristine white walls and stone arches, high ceilings, and lush greens. This serves as the canteen for the City Hall's many employees before, as well as a relaxed environment for meetings and social gatherings. Where is this place? Amazing! This is the Valenzuela City Social Hall found within the vicinity of the Valenzuela New City Hall. Is this place familiar to you? It was built by the Americans in 1910 and served as the boundary between Rizal and Bulacan Province. Before the existence of the MacArthur Highway and NLEX, Valenzuela was already considered the Gateway of the North. Where is this place? Very good. This is the Arcong Bato or Stone Arc found along MH Del Pilar, Arcong Bato, Valenzuela City. How many places did you get right? These are some of the famous and historical landmarks found in Valenzuela City. But what is common with the pictures presented? Take a closer look in each of the structure. Very good. The structures have U-shaped figures described by those arches. The U-shaped figures or arches are also known as parabola. A parabola describes the graph of a quadratic equation in two variables, or also known as quadratic function. But before we go to this topic, it is important to know the main concepts of quadratic equations and how to solve them. Let us proceed to the next activity entitled, Where is my pair? You need to match the equations in the first column, or column A, to their equivalent equation in the second column, column B. Dear students, you may drop the letter of the correct answers in the comment section. Let us have item number 1, given by 3x multiplied by the binomial x minus 2 is equal to 0. What do you think is its equivalent equation in column B? If your answer is C, 3x squared minus 6x is equal to 0, then you are correct. If you will apply distributive property to 3x times the binomial x minus 2 is equal to 0, then it will result to 3x squared minus 6x is equal to 0. Item number 2 is given by the square of the binomial x plus 3 is equal to 0. What is its equivalent equation in column B? Very good. If you will apply squaring a binomial technique to the equation, it will result to x squared plus 6x plus 9 is equal to 0, which corresponds to letter B. How about the last item, x minus 3 times x plus 2 is equal to 0? When FOIL method is applied to the given equation, it will have an equation equivalent to x squared minus x minus 6 is equal to 0. You are doing great! I want you to focus on the equivalent equations found in the second column. What is the degree of the following equations? Remember that degree refers to the highest exponent of the given polynomial. Correct. The degree is 2. So these are the examples or some examples of quadratic equations. But how are we going to define quadratic equation? How does it differ from a linear equation? Let us find out. A quadratic equation is a mathematical statement with a polynomial of degree 2, meaning that the highest exponent should be 2. And it can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0, where a, b, and c are real numbers and a should not be equal to 0. This is the reason why those examples presented in the previous slide are all examples of quadratic equations. Now, why is it that we have this restriction, a should not be equal to 0? So why is it a should not be equal to 0? If we will let a be equal to 0, thus we will obtain 0 times x squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. If we will simplify 0 times x squared, it will result to 0 plus bx plus c is equal to 0. Simplifying it further, the result will be bx plus c is equal to 0. What is the degree of this new equation? Very good. The degree is 1. Since the degree is 1, we call it as a linear equation. So it is important that we consider this restriction a should not be equal to 0 because this will make our quadratic equation unique from other equations. Quadratic equation has its standard form, given by ax squared plus bx plus c is equal to 0. The first term, ax squared, is what do we call as the quadratic term. It is the term where we can find the value of a. The second term, bx, is what do we call as our linear term. It is the term where we can find the value of b. And the last term is c. And this is what do we call as our constant term. It is important to consider the order of the exponents. It should be arranged in descending order, meaning from the highest exponent down to the lowest exponent. And the other side of the equation must be equal to 0. In this activity, we will need to use the react buttons and the comment box. Activity 3 is entitled, Let Me React. The main goal is to determine if the equation that will be presented is a quadratic equation or not. If it is a quadratic equation, we need to rewrite it in standard form. If the equation is a quadratic equation, hit the heart react button. If it is not, press the like react button. You may also post your answers in the comment section and let your teacher and other moderators see them. Remember that for a mathematical statement to be a quadratic equation, it should have a degree of 2 and an equal sign. Standard form if it is arranged in quadratic term, linear term, and constant term order. And the other side is 0. So let us start. Is 2x plus 5 equals 0 a quadratic equation? Is it a heart or like react? If your answer is no, then you got it right. It is not a quadratic equation since the degree of this equation is 1. We call this as a linear equation. Is 3x squared minus 27 equals 0 a quadratic equation? Is it a heart or like react? Very good. This is a quadratic equation because the degree of this equation is 2. Is this equation in standard form? Correct. It is already written in its standard form. So since the equation is in standard form, we can determine the values of A, B, and C. The value of A in our equation is 3. The value of B is 0 since there is no linear term. And the value of C is negative 27. Next item. Is M multiplied by the binomial M minus 6 is equal to 8M minus 5M squared a quadratic equation? If you can see, we can multiply the factor m to the binomial m minus 6. It is important that we simplify equations first before deciding whether it is a quadratic equation or not. So applying distributive property, we need to distribute m to the terms inside the parentheses. So m times m will be m squared. Next, m times negative 6 is negative 6m, which is equal to 8m minus 5m squared. Let us simplify it further using addition property of equality. So let us add negative 8m plus 5m squared or 5m squared minus 8m to both sides of the equation. So m squared plus 5m squared, that will be 6m squared. Next, negative 6m plus negative 8m, the result is negative 14m is equal to 0. Is this a quadratic equation? Yes, it is a quadratic equation, and this is already written in its standard form. The quadratic term is 6m squared that has the value of a, which is equal to 6. The linear term is negative 14m that has a value of b equal to negative 14. The constant term is 0, which is also equivalent to the value of c, since there is no constant term. An equation is still quadratic even if the linear term and the constant term are not present in the equation, as long as its highest degree is 2. Observe the structure of the next equation. Is the fourth item a quadratic equation? Is it a heart or like react? Amazing! It is not a quadratic equation since the highest degree of this equation is 4. Let us have the last item. The fifth equation is given by x squared plus 4x is equal to negative 3. Is this a quadratic equation or not? Will you give it a heart or like react? 5 seconds, go! If you drop a heart react, you are awesome. It is a quadratic equation since the highest degree of this equation is 2. But we need to rewrite this one in its standard form. We can do that by eliminating negative 3 in the right side of the equation using addition property. Let us add 3 to both sides of the equation. By simplifying the terms, we will obtain x squared plus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. So this equation is already written in its standard form. The quadratic term is x squared that has an a value equal to 1. The linear term is 4x that has a b value equal to 4. And then the constant term is 3 that has a c value equal to 3. Out of the 5 mathematical statements that we identified, 3 are quadratic equations, and we have already written them in their standard form. Since they are quadratic equations, how are we going to solve these quadratic equations? We should take note that when we are solving any equations, we are to find the value of the unknown variable that will satisfy the given equation. There are 4 methods in solving quadratic equations. The first one is by extracting square roots. The second one is by factoring. The third one is by completing the square. And then the last one is using the quadratic formula. But today, we will only be discussing the first 2 methods in solving quadratic equations, namely extracting square roots and factoring. The first item is 3x squared minus 27 is equal to 0. Looking at the structure of the equation, it does not contain the linear term. So if a quadratic equation has no linear term, it is easiest and most convenient to solve using extracting square roots. In using extracting square root as a method of solving, we need the square root property. It states that if x squared is equal to k, then if we are going to extract the square roots of both sides of the equation, it will be x is equal to the positive negative square root of k, where k is a non-negative number or k is greater than or equal to 0. So for you to understand better, let us solve the equation step by step. So be ready with your pen and paper and take note of the important steps and ideas. So to solve 3x squared minus 27 is equal to 0 using extracting square roots, first, we need to isolate the constant. So the constant is negative 27. It must be at the right side of our equation. So to do that, we apply the addition property of equality Adding 27 to both sides of the equation, it will be 3x squared is equal to 27. Next, we need to make sure that the value of a is equal to 1. In this case, the value of a is 3. So to do this, we need to divide both sides of the equation by 3. So by dividing, it will give us the equation x squared is equal to 9. Then, we apply the square root property by extracting square roots of both sides of the equation. The square root of x squared is x. To extract the square root of 9, think of two identical numbers or same numbers multiplied together. The product will be 9. The square root of 9 is 3. But we need to include positive and negative. So therefore, x is equal to the positive negative 3. Lastly, the solution set of the given equation is the set containing negative 3 and 3. So this shows the checking of the solutions. Both must satisfy the given quadratic equation upon substitution. So the first value, x is equal to 3. So it satisfies our given equation. Next, we have x is equal to negative 3. And it also satisfies our given equation. Since 3 and negative 3 both satisfy 3x squared minus 27 is equal to 0, hence, we can say that they are both solutions of our given quadratic equation. Let us have another example. Given x squared plus 7 is equal to negative 2, how are we going to solve this using extracting square roots? First, we need to isolate the constant. 7 must be at the right side of our equation. To do that, we will apply addition property of equality by adding negative 7 to both sides of our equation. So by combining similar terms, it will result to x squared is equal to negative 9. Next, we need to see to it that the value of a must be 1. But in this case, it is already 1. So no need to divide it by a particular number. Then, we apply extracting square root or the square root property. Extracting the square roots of both sides of the equation, the square root of x squared is x. But what is the square root of negative 9? Can you think of a number multiplied to itself, the product is negative 9? The answer is no. So, since no number will satisfy the given condition and following the square root property where k is a non-negative number or the value of k must be greater than or equal to 0, the answer for this one will be no real solution. How are we going to solve this last example? 3x squared minus 24 is equal to 0 by extracting square roots. Let us use the steps that we used in the previous examples. First, isolate the constant. Negative 24 must be at the other side of our equation. To do this, we need to apply our addition property of equality by adding 24 to both sides of the equation. And combining similar terms, it will result to 3x squared is equal to 24. Next, we need to make sure that the value of a is equal to 1. In this case, a is equal to 3. So therefore, there is a need for us to divide both sides of the equation by 3. 3x squared divided by 3, so that will be x squared. 24 divided by 3, that will be 8. So it will result to x squared is equal to 8. Then we apply the square root property by extracting the square roots of both sides of the equation. So it will be square root of x squared is equal to the positive negative square root of 8. But what is the square root of 8? We know that the square root of x squared is x. 8 is not a perfect square number. To simplify this, we need to factor 8. Where one of the factors is a perfect square. So what are the factors of 8? Very good. So the factors will be 4 and 2. So we extract the square roots of each of the factors. The square root of 4 is 2. The other factor will remain inside the radical or the square root symbol since it can no longer be simplified. Therefore, the solution set is the set containing positive negative 2 square root of 2, which can also be written as negative 2 square root of 2, comma, positive 2 square root of 2. Look at this equation. This is the second equation that we identified as quadratic equation. We cannot use extracting square roots, but we can use factoring in solving this one. If the square root property is used for extracting square roots, we use the zero product property in solving quadratic equations by factoring. So zero product property states that if factors or two numbers has a product equal to 0, then one of them is 0 or both of them are 0. So to further understand how this property works, let us solve the quadratic equation. We use solving quadratic equation using factoring if the given equation is factorable, and we must make sure that the equation is written in its standard form. First, we need the factored form of the given equation. If we can see, in the example, 6m squared minus 14m is equal to 0 is factorable. We can use its greatest common monomial factor or the CMF. The CMF of 6 and negative 14 is 2. The CMF of m squared and m is m. Therefore, the CMF of the equation is 2m. We factor out the CMF that is 2m. To determine the expression inside the parentheses, we divide the terms in the original equation by the CMF. So 6m squared divided by the CMF 2m will result to 3m. And this will be the first term in the binomial factor. Next, negative 14m divided by the CMF 2m is negative 7. This will be the second term of the binomial factor. Therefore, the factored form will be 2m times the binomial 3m minus 7 is equal to 0. Next, we need to apply the zero product property by equating both factors to 0. The first factor 2m equated to 0, that will be 2m is equal to 0. And the other factor 3m minus 7 equated to 0, that will be 3m minus 7 is equal to 0. If we will simplify the first equation, 2m is equal to 0, we will divide both sides of the equation by 2 to get the value of m. 2m divided by 2 is m. 0 divided by 2 is 0. Therefore, the first solution of the equation is 0. Next, we consider this equation. 3m minus 7 is equal to 0. If we will apply addition property of equality, the resulting equation is 3m is equal to 7. Then, we divide both sides of the equation by 3 to get the value of m. 3m divided by 3 is m. 7 divided by 3 is 7/3. Hence, m is equal to 7/3. So the solution set of the given quadratic equation is the set containing 0 and 7/3. Let us have another example. X squared plus 4x plus 3 is equal to 0. This is the third equation that we identified as quadratic equation. In this case, CMF is not applicable, but rather we will use factoring general trinomial. So first, we get the factored form of the given equation. The factors of x squared are x and x. Next, think of factors of 3. That will give us the sum of 4. So what are the numbers? Two numbers multiplied together, the product is 3. At the same time, if we add them, the result is 4. Those are? Very good. 3 and 1. So to check, 3 times 1 is equal to 3. Then 3 plus 1 is equal to 4. Therefore, the factored form will be x plus 3 times x plus 1 is equal to 0. Next, we will be applying our zero product property. We need to equate both factors to 0. So that will be x plus 3 is equal to 0 and x plus 1 is equal to 0. In the equation x plus 3 is equal to 0, we will apply the addition property of equality by adding negative 3 to both sides of the equation. The result will now be x is equal to negative 3, and that is considered as our first solution. In the equation x plus 1 is equal to 0, we will also apply the addition property of equality. So adding negative 1 to both sides of the equation, it will result to x is equal to negative 1, which is considered as the other solution of the equation. Lastly, we identify the solution set as the set containing negative 3 and negative 1. Let us now go to the last example. X squared minus 10x plus 21 is equal to 0. First, we need to find its factored form. So using factoring general trinomial, the factors of x squared are x and x. Think of factors of 21. When added, the sum is negative 10. So what are the numbers? Very good. The numbers are negative 7 and negative 3. So let us check. Negative 7 times negative 3 will give us positive 21. At the same time, if we add the numbers, negative 7 plus negative 3, that will give us negative 10. Therefore, the factored form is x minus 7 times x minus 3 is equal to 0. Now, let us apply the zero product property. So the first factor x minus 7 equated to 0, that will be x minus 7 is equal to 0. The second factor will be equated to 0. The result will be x minus 3 is equal to 0. In the equation x minus 7 equals 0, let us apply addition property of equality by adding 7 to both sides of the equation. The result will now be x is equal to 7, and this is considered as our first solution. In the equation x minus 3 is equal to 0, we will also apply the addition property of equality. We need to add positive 3 to both sides of the equation. Simplifying this one, we will obtain x is equal to 3, which is considered as the other solution of our equation. Lastly, we determine the solution set of the given equation as the set containing 3 and 7. You did great! I hope that you can still recall the concepts that you had during your previous year level and the ideas that we have today. We are through with the first two methods of solving quadratic equations, namely extracting square roots and factoring. The other two remaining will be discussed next meeting. Let us now sum up today's discussion. Let us give it off to one of our live viewers, Peter.
To summarize the lesson, a quadratic equation is a mathematical statement with a polynomial of degree 2 that can be written in the form ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0, where a, b, and c are real and a is not equal to 0. At marami tayong iba't ibang paraan kung paano mag-solve ng quadratic equations, but mainly, we use 4. Una ay ang solving by extracting square roots, factoring, completing the square, and lastly, by using the quadratic formula.
Thank you very much, Peter. It is also important to note that solving quadratic equations by extracting square roots, it is easiest and most convenient to use if the linear term is missing. Solving quadratic equations by factoring is easiest to use if the equation is factorable. I will leave you with this. Think of this. How are you going to solve quadratic equation x squared minus 2x minus 2 is equal to 0? Can you use extracting square roots in solving this one? No, that's correct. Is the equation factorable? No, very good. But how are you going to solve this? This will be answered the next meeting. We will now go and proceed with the question and answer. A question from our random viewer: is it possible to use factoring instead of extracting square roots? Yes, we can use difference of two squares, especially when the terms are perfect squares and the operation involved is subtraction. So take note that we use extracting square roots when the linear term is missing. Another question: what is the proper way of writing the solution set of an equation? So it can be written in sentence form or with curly braces, putting the first number with the lower value followed by a comma, then the number with the higher value. And for your home learning task in your ADM or learning modules, under What's More section, answer try these and keep trying A and B. You may also visit the DepEd Commons at commons.deped.gov.ph for more information. If there will be clarifications and queries, you may ask your respective math teachers. I hope that you've learned something for today. And this is Sir Jude saying that in this pandemic, learning should never stop. And always remember, we should be consistent to joyfully venture the world of numbers. Understand the mathematical concepts with an open heart and an open mind. Continue to determine solutions to mathematical problems that will need our decision-making and problem-solving skills. And most especially, enjoy the good vibes of learning mathematics at home. Thank you for listening and see you again next time in our Mathematics 9 Valenzuela Live. God bless you learners and stay safe.
Dahil sa COVID-19 pandemic, napili